Alright, continuing where we have left off. I already showed you in the first video how to render the ZDEP embedded into the main render pass. So right now we're going to go back to the render settings, and this time I'm going to disable the ZDEP. Okay, so you can select the Z and then click on this two arrows, right, to take it out so that it doesn't render the ZDEP anymore. And for the command, the merge AOV, I'm just going to uncheck this. So what this means is right now I'm just going to be rendering the normal passes without any of these additional ZDEP passes. Okay, so to create a render pass, you have to go over to the top render section here and click on this button to bring up the render passes button. All right. So right now, what you see here is that the current pass, every time you hit render, it's just going to render with everything, with all the lights and all the texturing settings, okay, as normal. So this symbol here is almost like a Photoshop layering system. That means that we are rendering this entire scene, this shot, and what we are seeing now is this shot, and what will be rendered is represented by this clapperboard icon. Okay, so what we want to create right now is a pass where we render the ambient occlusion. So to do that, we have to create a brand new render pass. So click on it, and then we create a new render layer. And then for this render layer, we're going to call it ambient occlusion. So to give it a recognizable name, I'm going to call it AO, then underscore AO pass, okay, and I'm going to call it version 2, okay, because I've done the previous version before. Alright, so you can just call this AO pass, and next we want to add the objects into this pass which we want to render. So we have to create something called a collection. So go over to this layer, right mouse click on it and create a collection. Alright, so you can call the collection whatever name you want, but since we're going to go do an AO, so we're just going to call it AO collection. Right. So right now we can actually drag the objects or just select the objects under outliner and then place it over here. But since we have so many objects in our scene, I'm going to use a faster way. So that is to use the selection tool right on top here, click on select, all by type, and then choose geometry. So anything that is a mesh or geometry will be selected. Okay, the cameras will not be selected, but however, the lights will be selected. Now, since our AO doesn't require any lights, okay, we will have to remove the lights out from our selection. So you can go over to the default lighting set, holding down to your control key and left mouse click to deselect the lights. You do not want to have any of the lights selected in your ambient occlusion. Alright, so now with all the mesh objects selected, we can go over to our render pass menu here, the property box area, and then click on the add button here. So when you click on add, all the items in the outliner that you have selected, all the mesh objects will be selected. And the next step we want to do is that we want to apply something called a shader override to force all the objects in this layer, in this collection, to show up as a ambient occlusion render. So move the cursor over the AO collection, right mouse click on it, and then create a shader override. Now once you have created a shader override, you'll go to the property editor tab here and click on this button here, the checker button, and assign a Arnold shader ambient occlusion node. So we're going to keep everything as default for now. Now, in order to see the results of this layer, okay, we have to click on the eyeball here. Okay, and you'll notice that the viewport will start to change a little bit. And since we are not in the Arnold renderer, you can change your renderer to the Arnold viewport. Or if you want to have a faster response, you can open up your Arnold render view. Okay, and I'm just going to reduce the size of this a little bit. Now again, once I hit play, right, the video might freeze. So I'm just going to hit play and then see the result of the ambient occlusion. Okay, currently we are at beauty, and our beauty pass is not activated, that's why we're not seeing anything. So in order to see the AO path, we have to, let me just stop this first. Now in order to see the AO path, you have to click on the eyeball. Click on the eyeball here. Then go over to the beauty drop down. Okay, first we have to click on render first. Okay, and then we should be able to, okay, again the AO path is not showing, and this Arnold render view is not showing, so I'm going to use another method. I'm going to stop this and I'm going to close this. So the other way would be to go to click on renderer and click on the Arnold viewport and then hit play. So this time you should be able to see the results of the ambient occlusion. Okay, and right now I spotted an issue here. Despite me putting the collection, all the objects into the collection and not adding the light is still affecting the way the ambient occlusion is rendered. So we have this spotlight that is affecting the renders. So when you're rendering your ambient occlusion, I would suggest that you go and hide all your lights. Okay, so you can press H in outliner, select the lights, and then press H to hide all the lights. You do not want the lights, right, to be affecting your ambient occlusion. So I'm going to hide this spotlight, and then now my spotlight is gone, and now you can see my ambient occlusion is looking a little bit much better. Okay, so once you're done, you are ready to render. But in your render passes, make sure you uncheck those paths that you do not want to render. Since I already rendered my beauty pass, I can click on the clapper board. I'm going to hit stop on my viewport render first. I'm going to uncheck the clapper board. That means that I'm not going to render a beauty pass. Okay, I'm only going to be rendering a ambient occlusion, and I'm rendering it because this clapper board button is activated. Okay, so that means that when I hit render sequence, only my AO pass will be rendered. All right, so I can just hit play again to see, just to verify that I'll be rendering this. So I'll just hit stop here. Okay, so now let's go and render. So if you go to your render properties, okay, you can see that I'll be rendering it into this folder. Every time you activate render path, it will be rendering into this location. The file name, I'm just going to give it a correct name. I'm going to call it AO underscore pass. Same thing, I'm going to be rendering it as an EXR, and just to test it out, I'm just going to render one frame. So go to rendering, render sequence, all right, and render sequence and close. So for the AO pass, right, it should take just a little bit of time to render. You can see the AO renders very fast. Now we are done. So take note, make sure that your lights, your spotlights are not affecting it. If your spotlights are affecting your AO, please go and select the spotlights and hide them. So now that I have my AO, let's go to my After Effects. Okay, continuing from our first video, I'm going to bring in that AO pass render. Okay, right mouse click and import file. I'm going to navigate to my images folder, AO pass v2. Okay, this is the new one, and then I'm going to import this file. All right, so now I have my AO pass. I'm going to drag it and then put it on top of my beauty pass. And now watch very carefully when I change the mode from normal to multiply. Okay, you can't really see the effect here that much. However, if I turn it on and off, you can see that the AO pass is quite dramatic. Now you notice one thing about the AO pass, that the AO, the ambient occlusion behind, is very sharp because it is not being affected by the camera blur. So if you want the AO pass to blur correctly, you also have to apply the same effect onto it. So I'm going to apply effect, blur sharpen, camera lens blur, and using the same Z value to blur. Okay, so now you can see the AO behind here is now much softer. So we can actually follow the blur values of the beauty path. Okay, in this case, I set a value of 83, the focal distance. So I'm going to put at 83 as well. Okay, and then the blur radius is 7, so I'm going to put it at 7 as well, just to match the same amount of blur. Okay, so now I can turn the ambient occlusion on and off, and you can see that it matches the scene much better. And really having an ambient occlusion will improve the shadows, right? Especially when you have objects that are very close to each other. So it really gives your scene way much more character. Okay, so that's how you set up the rendering of the AO pass.